Well, hello and welcome to the Sacred Path School podcast number 10. I actually made it to double figures. Okay. In this podcast, so we're coming to the end of the first series of podcasts. So the first series should be, I think, 12 podcasts. So this, as I said, this is podcast number 10. So this is looking at the question of what are the implications of the various assumptions that you make as you've been going through. So as we've been going through, different ways of looking at this stuff, we've considered a whole range of different questions. And I just want to go back through some of those questions and just discuss like what the implications of the assumptions are. Because remember, when you're answering, so we're trying to put together a framework to look at the question of this one. So how do you walk a path of ascension? So how do you walk a sacred path through life? And as I said right at the start, what I've been trying to do in this series of podcasts, this series, I think it'll be 12, is to look at, okay, so what's an epistemology? What's a way of actually understanding all of this so you can actually put it together and make some sense out of it? So some of the concepts I just want to look at today or consider today and discuss, which go back to some of those key questions. So the first one, remember right at the start, when we were looking at existential philosophy and we were talking about the the Buddha story of the frog and the scorpion. Remember that? The frog and the scorpion meet each other on the side of the river. And so the key question is, remember the scorpion ends up stinging this frog, and the frog says, why'd you do that? The scorpion goes, it's in my nature, basically deal with it. So it's one of the most fundamental questions. I think the first question you can ask when you're looking at this sort of stuff is, what is your belief? So what is your belief between free will versus destiny and or a combination of the two? And whatever your answer to that question is, it's going to have some very significant implications for the way that you will then try and walk a sacred path. So let's just consider like some of those things. So, and a lot of these things are in various teachings. So there's even African tribes, for example, that believe that we come into this world with a specific purpose, and it's the task, if you like, or the responsibility of the whole tribe to help each individual members of the tribe actually find out what their purpose is. So obviously that's quite different to the way that we often address these questions in the West, so to speak. All right, anyway. So if you believe in destiny, and I should say also the interesting thing in this is there's a bit of research that says that if you ask people in workshops, which I do ask people in workshops, do you believe you are here on this earth for a particular purpose? Okay, so do you believe that you're here for a specific or particular purpose? And roughly 2/3 of people will say yes, they believe that there's a particular purpose in life. And then you say, okay, so who knows what that purpose is, right? And the majority of people will say they have no idea, all right? Okay, so let's go back. So if you believe in destiny, so if you believe that you are put on this world with a purpose, in other words, that your life is somehow fated in some way, then there's, as I said, there's some really significant implications for that. So the first implication of that would be that if there's destiny or fate, then there's something beyond, this material world that we're living in. So in other words, there's like another realm. There's maybe some sort of higher being who's imparting that purpose on you or on us. And so in other words, there's something bigger than the self, all right? So it's not just all about you. The other implication, of course, is that if you believe in destiny, so if you believe that you do have a particular life path, then part of your sacred path, if you like, so part of your path of ascension will be trying to uncover what that path is and obviously to find that purpose and address that purpose in some way. Now, the interesting thing about it is that most of us believe in a mix between the two. So most of us believe that, oh yeah, like I have some particular purpose in life, not quite sure what it is, but I do have free will over a variety of things, right? So the other way of looking at this is that you have moments loaded with destiny, right? So there'll be significant moments in your life where you have to make big choices in your life about what path to go down, and those moments are your really opportunity to connect with your life path and your destiny. And so one possible way of uncovering that is to look at the question of defining moments. So to look back through your life and think about what have been the defining moments in your life, and what did you actually learn from that, and what are the implications for life path. All right. If you believe, on the other hand, that you have complete free will, so you have complete free will to create whatever you want to create in life, and there's no restrictions, then again, that's going to have significant implications for walking a sacred path and walking a path of ascension, because the other implication there is well, I suppose the other assumption there is whether or not you come back into this world. So in other words, whether or not you believe in reincarnation. So if you just have this life, so basically you have you born into this life, you live your life, you die, that's it, bang, done, right? Or that you go, after this life, you go back to some other realm, whether it be from a religious perspective, from heaven or something like that, or you just go into some other sort of ether and then you come back into this world. So whichever way it works, there'll be implications there again for the way you act in this world. The second key question to ask is, so what were you taught about the way the world works? And again, there's some really big implications here. So if you were taught things, for example, like goes around, comes around, or say from the Christian perspective, as you sow, so shall you reap, right? So that, again, that has some really significant implications, because basically what that is promoting or believing is the whole notion of karma. Now, if there's karma, it means that there has to be something that links us all together, right? So karma is like, so if I do bad things, that bad stuff's going to come back to me, right? So if it's going to come back to me, and obviously the opposite, good as well. So if it's going to come back to me, then there has to be something that links us all together. So now we're back to quantum physics and the whole idea of a quantum field that links us all together. But with karma, or with, as you sow, so shall you reap, it's across time, right? So there's also a linkage across time. So there's a link between what happens now and what happens in the future. And also, if you believe in karma, or you believe in like the interrelatedness, then the future somehow knows, right? This is the weird part. The future has to be able to know what's happened in the past. So see how, again, there has to be like a linkage across time. And again, it's one of those things that we can't understand with the rational mind, which I'll talk about in a sec. But again, significant implications, because if you don't believe in karma, so if you don't believe in, as you sow, so shall you reap. So basically, you can go ahead and do whatever you want to do, and there's no sort of big like force or power in the universe that's keeping an eye on everybody, like Father Christmas or something like that. And basically, as long as you don't get caught, you can get away with anything. So see how like different that is. And again, there's lots of things that will have implications with that, the way the world works. And you can go through and think about the way you were brought up and the stories and anecdotes that you were told, and what the implications of those stories and beliefs and values are for the way you now live your life. Okay. The third question you ask is, okay, so who you are, right? And remember with who you are. So you start off pretty much with a blank sheet, and again, see how this crosses over with the free will versus destiny story, because if you believe in destiny or fate, then you're not born into this world as a blank sheet. You're born into this world carrying something with you. So carrying something from the past, carrying something from another realm, whatever it is, you're not completely free. But even if you believe that you're born into this world free without destiny, as soon as you're born into the world, you start getting told stories about who you are. So you're told by your parents who you are. You're given a, what would you say, sort of your place in the world, like with regard to things like culture, family history, all of those sorts of things are going to place you in the world. And the implications of that are that you become limited to options rather than true possibility. So the more you're actually told about who you are, the more it limits your possibilities about what you believe is possible in life. And this relates back to, I think it was in the second podcast when we looked at your life as a project. And we looked at some of the concepts that were put forward by Jean-Paul Sartre and Martin Heidegger. And one of the key concepts in existentialism is the whole notion of being free of them, right? And when you're trying to be free of them, what you're trying to be free of is the, I suppose, the judgments and stories that you're told by other people about who you are that then limit, as I was saying before, what you then believe is possible in life. Also, being free of them would be to try and be free of what would you call it? Sort of family history, family karma, that sort of stuff that has happened before. And again, that's going to limit what you see as possible in life. So you see the point that I'm trying to make here, that as you go through some of these key questions, right? So remember what we're trying to do. Trying to work out, okay, how do you walk a path of ascension in life? So how do you walk a sacred path that allows you to ascend in some way? And ideally, obviously, maybe by definition, that would be to lead a good life, okay? And how you answer some of these basic questions, as I said, has really big and very significant implications for what sort of system you can put together for being able to do that, right? So again, it's worthwhile digging into this. All right, so the fourth key concept to consider is good versus bad. And again, this is one of these real foundation type things, because it goes back to the central question of whether or not you believe that human nature is inherently good, or is human nature inherently bad? Right? So if you believe that human nature is inherently good, then when you see people doing bad things in the world, you're still going to have hope, I suppose, for humanity, and you're still going to make efforts to engage with other people, to look for the good in people, etc., etc., etc. If you believe that human nature is inherently bad, then you're going to do various things to protect yourself, because your expectation is going to be that people are going to do bad things. And see how as soon as you have an expectation, then it changes what you're actually going to pay attention to, and changes what you believe is possible. And again, this is going to cross over with the whole notion of whether or not there is some sort of karmic field that links us all together. Okay, because you see, obviously, if you believe that human beings are inherently good, then you can do things to contribute to the collective, right? Because if you believe that we're all connected together, then basically we're all linked together. You believe in the concept of unity, etc., 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 and you're going to do various things. If it's around the other way, you're going to, so in other words, it's around the way of thinking that people are bad, then again, you're going to think about it in a very different way, and you're going to take actions to protect yourself from those bad people. But, right, if you believe that we are all interconnected, and you believe that basically we are all in this together, then going down the path of making judgments about other people and excluding other people is actually harming you, right? Because if you're all interconnected together and you're putting bad things into the world, like judgment, etc., ostracizing people, etc., then you're inhibiting or damaging, if you like, the unity of all of us, and hence, of course, damaging yourself. So again, see how these different things cross over. The last one just to consider there is the key concept. So this is Descartes. So René Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." Obviously, he said it in French, but the English translation is, "I think, therefore I am." And the famous image of Descartes is with the hand on the chin on the hand, thinking through things. And it's often, like, I suppose, brought up because it's really about the belief is the preeminence of the rational mind, right? So it's the preeminence of the rational mind. So I think, therefore I am. So what creates my being is my ability to think. And again, if you buy into that, so if you buy into that belief, then it has implications for all the other things, because if you believe in the preeminence of the rational mind, then you believe in the ability of your mind to think things through or work things out. And I would suggest to you that, without getting too far ahead, I would suggest to you that it's a flawed way of thinking about life, because it's limiting you to the, I suppose, small amount of information that the rational mind is actually able to process. And we know from the neurocognitive science research that the whole mind, so the subconscious mind, as well as the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, is receiving a lot more information than what the conscious mind is actually able to process. So, again, if you believe in the adage of "I think, therefore I am," the preeminence of the rational mind, then you're limiting your possibilities. All right, so what are some of the implications of this? In terms of key shifts, and I'm preparing you because in the next podcast, going to look at, okay, what elements do you need to put into a self-mastery system? So if you're creating a self-mastery system, what would it look like? But let's just come back to this first. So the key shift. So the first thing to do is to release self-importance, okay? And you might say, why would you do that? And obviously there's been a lot of, there's a lot of stuff written about and commentary about ego and perils of ego and blah, 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 blah. But the main issue around, or the main reason to release self-importance is that if you believe that you are, important in some way, in other words, you have some sort of, I suppose there's a bit of ego or arrogance or something like that, then you're going to have a very fixed mindset. And again, you're going to think that you can work things out, and that is going to limit what you then see as being possible. The second key shift, or the second key activity to do, is to be able to walk between the worlds. Right? So what that means is, if you think back to the existential philosophy framework and the past, present, future realms, I suppose, and the whole idea that the key relationship in existential philosophy is between being and time, and that was Martin Heidegger's key work, was Being and Time. But if you understand that, then there's a key skill required is the ability to step between those three realms. So step between the past, the present, and the future. And I talked about, I think in the first podcast, we looked at existential philosophy and talked about the whole notion of time flowing backwards. So the future becomes the present, which then becomes the past. But various quantum physicists, including Stephen Hawking, talk about time as being able to flow both forwards and backwards, right? So our concept of time, I suppose our sort of simplistic concept of time, if you like, as being linear is, again, I think quite flawed. So if you want to be able to walk a path of ascension, you need to be able to walk between the worlds. So you need to be able to walk into the future in your mind or your imagination and plant some seeds of possibility in the future. But you also need to be able to go back into the past and to free yourself from the past. And see how the whole idea of being able to free yourself from the past is not only to be able to free yourself of them, right, and the I suppose judgments and stories that other people have about you, but also to be able to free yourself from I suppose negative experiences from the past that have limited your belief in what is possible in life. So you know how you can have experiences that are traumatic in whatever way, generally sort of emotionally traumatic. And they have an implication on your capacity or your ability to have faith in, I suppose, sort of higher possibilities. So it damages your ability to have faith, and it's very easy to retreat back into the rational, what would you call it, sort of objective world, material world, right? But if you want to be able to uncover and, I suppose, grow yourself and, as I said, walk that path of ascension, then you need to be able to find a way of releasing yourself from the limitations of the material world. The third shift to make is to have mastery of intent. And again, this was one of the key concepts that both Heidegger and Sartre talk about the power of intention, etc. And so the key shift to be able to make really with this stuff is to be able to shift from reactiveness, so shift from reacting to events as they occur. And you might remember we talked about the neurocognitive science material, and particularly Daniel Kahneman's work on thinking fast and thinking slow. And remember, you've got these two decision-making processes in the brain. So systems 1 thinking is subconscious pattern matching. Systems 2 thinking is higher order conscious reasoning. We default in subconscious pattern matching because it uses less energy than higher order conscious reasoning. And the key characteristic of systems 1 thinking is that you can't turn it off. So if I say to you what's 2 + 2, you can't stop 4 jumping into your head. Likewise, every time you walk into a new situation, you cannot stop your mind from pattern matching, from looking for, I suppose, similar situations from the past and pattern matching against that, okay? So the shift to make is to shift out of that reactive mode and into intentional mode. And what that means is the ability to have some influence, or again, plant some seeds of possibility in the future so that you can intentionally create what you want to create. And what that means is that before going into a situation, of actually taking some time to establish what your intention is going into that situation, and then to try and align your actions to that intent. And again, it's one of those things that you can't work it out, but what you can do is you can put in place thinking processes and systems that are going to allow you to actually do that. The fourth shift is the idea of getting beyond thinking. And so this goes back to the, what would you call it, concept or notion that the rational mind is not able to receive all of the information that is actually available in the world. And also the rational mind will actually trap you in a particular way of looking at the world. So you need to be able to do activities that enable you to get beyond thinking. And it's worthwhile here looking at the work of Mikhail, totally unpronounceable last name, and his work, is a Russian social psychologist, I suppose he is, who wrote the book Flow and did quite a lot of work on flow. So there's benefits in doing activities that allow you to get beyond thinking and to step beyond the rational mind. The next concept is the idea of becoming comfortable in uncertainty. Now, if you think about this, if we go back to the existential philosophy framework, and you remember that the past-present loop is very safe. So the past-present loop is very safe. It's based on evidence. You can pattern match against past experiences. And as I said, it allows you to, I suppose, rationally think things through and be very, I suppose, secure and comfortable in where you're at. However, it won't allow you to uncover aspects of the self that you don't already know. And it won't allow you to evolve in a way that will allow you to ascend. So in some way, we need to find ways of becoming comfortable in uncertainty. So we need to find ways of being able to step into that future present loop, to plant seeds of the possibility, to plant seeds of possibility in the future, and then to be able to step into that realm of uncertainty and act on that without freaking out. And many of us, go into that realm and start freaking out, start becoming fearful, afraid, whatever, and therefore, running back to a safe place and becoming certain about things rather than the, I suppose, destabilizing aspect of uncertainty. But again, that will limit you to what you already know. The next one is the concept of working with cycles, right? And this is again in philosophy. There's the concept of things not going or not working in a linear way. For example, Hermetic philosophy talks about life is like a pendulum. So the pendulum swings all the way one way, and then it swings all the way back the other way. So it swings through the middle and goes back the other way before it starts to settle in the middle. And if you understand that life goes in cycles, then you also understand that there are things that you need to do at certain stages of the cycle. And if you try and do those things at the wrong stage of the cycle, that won't actually work, or you won't get benefit from it. The other thing about this is to be able to understand the benefits of working in circular feedback loops. So again, working in cycles, so round we go. So you can think about this in terms of like daily cycle, weekly cycle, monthly cycle, moon cycles, lunar cycles, solar cycles, etc., etc., etc. And all of those things have influence, and all those things are going to have an effect on whatever you do. So therefore, there's benefit in understanding cycles and in working with cycles. The last concept, I suppose, to get your head around is the idea of surrendering to spirit. There's a great concept of this where American Indians talk about, and again, I should have the reference, but I haven't, sorry about that. But they talk about the idea of the spirit, the mind, the body, and the emotions. And what they say is that what we should do is receive with the spirit. So basically allow all of the information to come up into us. Then we should discern with the mind, hold with the body, right? And give with the emotions. But what they say in the West is that what we try and do, we try and receive with the mind. So we come across a new situation, we try and work it out with the mind. Discern with the spirit. So how do we actually feel about it, or what's our gut, whatever. We hold with the emotions. So we hold out to emotions and we give with the body. So if we say to somebody like, I love you, then often the way that we will express that love is by giving them something. So giving them a present or something. And what the American Indians say is that we should be giving emotionally and holding with our body. So see how the pattern, if you like, is different. But the key there is the ability to, as I said, surrender to spirit. All right. So I want to just finish this off just by looking at some quotes. And this stuff that I'm talking about today, it's stuff that's been, discussed by philosophers and thinkers and artists really throughout time. Lots of people have struggled, or lots of people have tried to work out, like, what the heck, those key questions. What am I doing here, right? What's my life purpose? How do I lead a good life? So the first quote just to look at is William Blake from The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. And the quote is, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it really is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks in his cavern. Okay, so if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it really is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks in his cavern. Okay, so basically what he's saying is that by limiting our perception, right? So we've limited our perception, but basically the doors of perception are dirty, if you like. So we only see a small portion of what is actually happening in the world. And this is why I was saying to you, there's benefit in getting beyond thinking, because if you only allow yourself to receive with the intellect, then you don't see everything. You see, as it says there, you see um, small things through the narrow chinks. And what William Blake is saying is that if we could cleanse our perception, then everything would appear to man as it really is, infinite. So there's infinite possibility in the world, but we don't see it because we see limitations. Right? So again, big implications for how you would walk, or how you could walk a sacred path. Rudolf Steiner. So Rudolf Steiner is another one. Rudolf Steiner is a very interesting guy. So obviously he founded the Steiner School, Rudolf Steiner Schools, and written extensively about spiritual beings and all this sort of stuff. So here's Steiner's quote. So according to Steiner, there is another self, right? So there's another self, a hidden spiritual being, which is the individual's guide and guardian, which, quote, does not make itself known through thoughts or inner words. It acts through deeds, processes, and events. It is this other self that leads the soul through the details of its life destiny and evokes its capacities, tendencies, and talents. Right? So the first thing you might note in there is that Steiner talks about life destiny. So Steiner is somebody who believes that you're brought into this world for a purpose, and there is some level of destiny in life. But let's just look at that quote again. So the quote is, so what he's saying is there's another aspect of the self which is hidden, which again, this relates to the notion, the framework of the Johari window. So the Johari window basically says that we have a hidden aspect of self. And Steiner says it does not make itself known through thoughts or inner words. Right? So we can't think our way through this. It acts through deeds, processes, and events. It is this other self that leads the soul through the details of its life destiny and evokes its capacities, tendencies, and talents. Okay, so this part of ourself that's hidden is acting through deeds, processes, and events. So you go, okay, so there's big implications again. So if you want to walk a sacred path, there's benefit in embedding circular feedback loops that allow you to reflect on the events of your life and to ask the question of, okay, what's the significance of that? Is there anything I need to learn from that? Because what Steiner is saying that through those deeds, processes, and events, the other self leads the soul through the details of its life destiny and evokes its capacities, tendencies, and talents. So see how, again, there's benefit in not only considering the events that occur to us and what it means, but also in paying attention to defining moments. Because defining moments do the last bit, so evoke capacities, tendencies, and talents, so we can get to see how we really are in the world, not how we think we are or how we say we are. Another quote here, so this is from David Bohm. So reality is what we take to be true. What we take to be true is what we believe. What we believe determines what we take to be true. So see how we're going around in a circle here. So let's just say it again. Reality is what we take to be true, right? What we take to be true is what we believe. And what we believe determines what we take to be true. So see how it's tautological, in other words, it's going around in a circle. A couple of things there. If you go back to the Descartes quote, I think, therefore I am. I think David Bohm is saying the same thing, that we should change the quote to, I believe, therefore I am. Okay, I believe, therefore I am. Not I think, therefore I am, but I believe, therefore I am. And again, that has some pretty significant implications, okay, because obviously whatever you believe is going to have implications for what you believe to be true, what you see in reality. And again, what we know from the neurocognitive science is that we suffer from confirmation bias. So once the mind has made a decision about something, so once the mind has made a judgment or come to a belief, then the mind is going to pay attention to all of the things that support the fact that that belief is true, and it's going to reject all or dismiss all of the things, all of the evidence that questions whether or not that belief is true. Okay, so you see how again, tautological goes around in circles, and again you see the benefit of finding ways of stepping into uncertainty and becoming comfortable in uncertainty. And then the last quote here that I just want to share is Carl Jung, right? So this is another interesting one. So obviously Carl Jung, what would you call him? Globally famous psychiatrist. Worked with Einstein. Sorry, I have a mental blank. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the quote anyway is, "What we do not make conscious emerges later as fate." Oh, Freud, sorry, I was going to say, worked with Freud. Carl Jung worked with Freud. Had a falling out. Freud told him to go away. Carl Jung went and came up with his own framework of the world, which then, of course, flows into the Myers-Briggs tool. Anyway, the quote, let's go back to the quote. "What we do not make conscious emerges later as fate." All right, so this is a really interesting question or really interesting quote, because see how it comes back to that destiny versus fate issue. And Carl Jung is saying that if we don't make something conscious, so if we don't take the time to actually dig into our unconscious or subconscious mind and surface some of these things, then it will emerge later as fate, right? So there's some things that we cannot escape. And again, there's big implications for walking a sacred path and walking a path of ascension. If that's the case, then we need to actually put in place processes that allow us to, again, dig into the unconscious or subconscious mind, surface those sorts of things, do various activities that are going to allow us to be more aware of the hidden aspects of self. All right, so again, hopefully what you see out of going through some of these things or some of these concepts is that when you're trying to address, what would you call it, sort of ascension type issues, so whether it be like personal development issues, like how to lead a good life, sort your shit out, whatever, there's benefit in going back to some of these foundation questions and really digging into them in quite a lot of depth. So dig into them and contemplate them in quite a lot of depth and try to find out what the assumptions that you're making, because those assumptions have very big implications for then what you should do and whether or not what you do is actually going to have a positive impact on your ability to evolve. So next podcast in 2 weeks' time, next podcast I'm going to look at, as I said, how do you create a self-mastery system, right? So given that we can't fix ourselves, given that we can't work these things out, and then we need to find ways of getting beyond thinking, stepping into uncertainty, walking between the worlds, etc., how do you do that? And as I said, I'll take you through that next podcast, creating a self-mastery system. And then the last one, we'll look at all those key questions. So what are all those key questions that you can ask that help you to put together a way of like understanding life? And I'll also share my answer to those key questions. And then that will be the end of this series of podcasts, which I think is the foundation series. And then the next series of podcasts, we'll start going out and finding interesting people and asking them all of those questions. Right, so we'll wrap it up there. So just a few things, just to let you know. So Sacred Path School is a school of existential philosophy. You can follow Sacred Path School on LinkedIn and also on Facebook. And again, there's a YouTube channel. With this podcast, the audio is uploaded to Buzzsprout and also to Apple Podcasts, and the video is uploaded to the YouTube channel. I hope you found all that pretty thought-provoking. I know I do. And going to end the podcast there. Okay, thank you. Bye for now.